Good morning and welcome. It's great to be back with you again as we begin another week. I was just thinking this morning how that I was having a conversation one time and a person told me I hate Monday mornings because for them Monday morning meant a backlog of problems and issues and challenges that they were going to have to wrestle with through the next couple of days at least before they could get back to a place of stasis or normalcy. And I thought for a moment, I think that there's a lot of times where we have those kind of feelings about certain days or certain situations or certain circumstances. It may be one day out of the year for you that you dread seeing it come around. For some of us, when we get into our age, we don't know if we're supposed to mourn or to celebrate when it comes to our birthdays. But it's a sad thing because as I shared with this person, I said, don't let the devil steal Monday from you. And it's the idea that somehow bad things are going to come on a certain day or a certain way and you have no control over them. When in fact, I was reminded just the other day of something my pastor used to always say. He said, I believe that every day that God is going to bless me in some special way. And I thought to myself, that's an interesting point of view because he had such a confidence in the goodness of God and also the graciousness of God. In other words, the graciousness of God tells me that I don't deserve to be blessed, but nevertheless, God is going to bring blessing into my life because that's more an expression of his nature than of my sins. And so my pastor used to always say, I could wake up every morning and I anticipate that God is going to do something. I don't know what it is. I don't know how he's going to do it. And so as I was thinking about that, I reflect about why do we do these daily devotionals? Why do I do it? As you can suspect, it probably involves a bit of time and energy and effort on my part and the part of others who kind of edit them and post them and keep reminding me to stay on schedule. But then I thought about a proverb that has always been a special one to me. It's Proverbs 25:11. And it reads this way. It says, a word aptly spoken is like apples of gold in settings of silver. And it's really kind of giving a description of something that's quite attractive. You have apples of gold, this sculpture, if you will, made out of gold, and then it's surrounded by a silver frame. I mean, I don't care what your taste in jewelry or pictures or anything is, you can't help but sit back and say, well, that's something of beauty, something attractive. And that's what Solomon was trying to express. He said that when you say things that really build people up and help them to grow in their walk with God, and to comfort them in the times of their struggles and difficulties, those are like something of beauty, an apple of gold set in a setting of silvers. And so really my objective in doing these daily devotionals is that. I thought if I had been more forethought on all of this, I would have started by referring to these daily devotionals as apples of gold. But then I thought, well, it might be a bit presumptuous in making more of them than what they are. But I hope they are apples of gold in pictures of silver for you and that they encourage you. Which really is kind of my lead into our continuing look into the Sermon on the Mount. We left off with the close of the Lord's Prayer last time, and we want to pick it up immediately after that because Jesus does something that's kind of interesting to me. In the Lord's Prayer, he talked about forgiveness. He said, Lord, forgive us our debts as we also have forgiven our debtors. Some translations say, forgive us our trespasses as we have trespassed against others. And that's an interesting term to use, trespass, but because it means I've really inserted myself into somebody else's life in a way that's inappropriate or improper. It can be by a word that wounds, or it can be taking something that's theirs or should have been theirs for myself. It's the idea that suddenly I'm on the wrong side of whatever relational equation that I happen to be in that moment. And let's be honest, that kind of stuff happens to us pretty regularly. It's pretty easy. That's why James said in his letter in the 3rd chapter, he says, if any man doesn't offend with his words, he has pure religion. I mean, the reality is in our words, our thoughts, and our actions, we often are guilty of transgressing and trespassing and even stealing something from somebody that's not ours. And so I thought it was interesting because as he said that was part of our prayer life, he then returns right away as he closes the model of prayer. He turns immediately to the issue of forgiveness again. And I think that's something we should take note of because when we read the Bible, it's important for us to understand that there are probably only 2 books in the entire Bible that have like statements that are listed in a rather disjointed way. In other words, they're not thematically developed. That would be the book of Proverbs and also the book of Ecclesiastes. They are basically proverbs and meant to be seen like that so that we can identify certain general themes in our study of the book of Proverbs, but we can't necessarily read them the way we would a narrative. And much of the Bible is narrative. There are some exceptions where we have what we call lyric poetry. That's the book of Psalms and other places where the psalmist or the individual would write a poem like the Song of Miriam that we have in the book of Exodus. There was a poetic statement that was meant to be sung lyrically, which in and of itself is significant because when we sing things, we are engaging both sides of our brain. It's not just what we say with our mouths. We're not just focusing on the words, but we're also feeling them. And we have that feeling and cognitive processes are going at the same time. And so we have that in the scriptures. But when we look at most of the Bible, it's a narrative that's supposed to be read in an order. And the connection is not incidental or accidental. It's intentional. So that when he begins in verse 14 to say, "For if you forgive others their transgressions, your heavenly Father will also forgive you. But if you do not forgive others, then your Father will not forgive you your transgressions." That's kind of a scary prospect, isn't it? That you have not forgiven somebody, and therefore God the Father is not forgiving you. And I think what it does, it brings back the importance of forgiveness as a central aspect of what it means to be a follower of Jesus Christ. So we're coming kind of the close of the time that we have here today, but I really want you to think about the issue of forgiveness, and in particular to ask yourself that question: are there people in my life that I have not forgiven? And I guarantee you're going to have no trouble finding someone, somewhere, somehow, who you hold a grudge against. And you may not want to look at it like that. But it's something that has an impact, a significance to your life that you should not overlook. But we'll continue talking about this a little bit more tomorrow. Thank you for spending the time. I'm praying that God will bring that special blessing into your life today because you're looking for it. And I just hope you go through the day with your eyes open, anticipating the goodness of God in your day to day. God bless you and go in His grace.